Well, thank you for having me here today. My name is Nguyen. I'm a psychiatrist. I was born in Vietnam in 1973, 2 years before the end of the war. So one day, three of my siblings and myself, we didn't know where my dad was. He was taken away from us and went to quote-unquote re-education camp. But eventually he made it out and he escaped and came first to a refugee camp. Shortly after, my mom took my older sister, myself, and my younger sister, I was only 7 at that time, by boat, and we spent 14 days robbed by Thai pirates 3 times. But we made it, and we were reunited with my father and my brother, who came here in 1980. So we came here in October 1980. We first lived in Orange. We moved to Irvine for high school. And since that time, I've stayed and did undergraduate medical school, my psychiatry residency at UC Irvine, and I also stayed on faculty and taught there as a professor there as well too. So I'm a lifelong anteaters. I think when I look at Little Saigon, when I first heard of this project, I don't think it as an area where you have to live in there. I see it as an area where a lot of Vietnamese refugees, due to the diaspora of the war, came here and congregate no matter where they live, whether they live in Los Angeles or in the city itself. This is where we come, kind of like a Mecca, right? We come on a monthly or whenever we can to visit, because I think for the parents, my parents, there's a familiarity where they feel this is home for them. For me as a kid, I just don't know. I just go here because the food is so dang good, right? I remember there was only a couple restaurants, and I remember that Boson Mini Mall was one of the few that was there. There were no Asian mall, there's no Phúc Lộc Thọ, there's none of that stuff. It's just 1 or 2 of them spread out on Bosa. Well, I think anytime that you're an immigrant, let alone a refugee, being a refugee means you're unable to stay where your homeland is for political or religious reasons. You're due to persecution. So you don't have a place. So when refugees first came here, there was some racism, definitely. I remember as a kid, not in Bosa or Little Saigon per se, but where I went to school in Orange, I was called gooks or ching chongs and those racial stuff and a lot of that stuff. But as kids, I just kind of brush it off and go, okay. But looking back, I can see the resentments from the war, right? There was such a high anti-Vietnam War sentiment, and they thought that because of us, there's so many Americans die, but hey, we fought on the same side. They don't realize that. As a kid, I didn't understand, but as an adult, I can come to that understanding. And I share this is because I'm a psychiatrist and I work at the VA. So I treat a lot of veterans, a lot of Vietnam vets. I only have 2 patients, 2 Vietnam vets that refuse to see me because I am Vietnamese. And somehow he affiliated me with the communist who killed his fellow soldiers, right? There's a huge misunderstanding on his part, but at the same time I feel bad for him because the trauma that he suffered for whatever happens in the war was so great for him to hold this really rigorous view. When it comes to this racism and all that, I think it's important that no matter if you're the recipient of it, it's important for you to stand firm and stand strong and educate, because over time people's view will change, because at the end of the day, it's not the color of my skin that they're going to see at. It's going to be who I am as a person. I can think of a couple places. I was raised Buddhist, so I think the temples is a very important part of it. Regardless if you're Buddhist, I think during around Tet, there's a strong traditions to visit the temples, and then to offer prayers or offer a new beginning. And I've seen the temples starting as a single, as a house, right, with one single room, the size not even as big as this one, in a small living room, and to see where it is now. We have multiple temples, and that looks magnificent. And I think that brings so much pride to the community, whether or not you're Buddhist or Muslim or Catholic or Christians. I think that's a total symbol of success for a community that was torn by war, right? And they were able to rebuild here. I see Futluptal as another source of pride because for many years we don't have a place to identify Bosa to. So you go, I'm going to Bosa. Is that a street? It is something. So when I first saw that Futluptal popping up, and I go, that's Bosa right there, right? That's where we can identify it. We have a landmark, in a sense, that we can identify. But my friends who are not Vietnamese, I brought plenty to come over here to eat. And you know, I'm so proud that Vietnamese food has now gotten into the mainstream of the U.S. For example, look at pho. Before, they don't know what that is, right? You would call it beef noodle soup. That's a description. That is not a name. And now, pho has a name in its own. I'm sure if you look up in the dictionary, they probably have that. So, you know, to have a Vietnamese dish now immersed in the mainstream, I'm so proud of that. As a kid, my mom takes me there. I love eating the meatballs. I will never forget that. It is the best meatballs. I'm so sad that restaurant closed down. In college, I went to UCI. This is definitely the place I would go to grab food. There's only so much Burger King and Carl's Jr. you can eat as a college student. And back then, a bowl of pho was still very, very reasonable. It's not like this expensive now, right? So we would drive down here in med school. I would come here for the same reasons. But by that time, I think it got more, there's a lot more hangout place that you can do. When I graduated and then working, I would often come here at least once or twice a week to eat. In fact, I just ate in Little Saigon prior to coming here.